The auctioneer's gavel slammed down, shattering the air like a gunshot, and my heart stopped as the word sold echoed through the smoky room. I was 22, standing on a cold stage in a warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. My wrists bound, my life reduced to a price tag, $500. 000 to the man in the shadows. His name, whispered in fear by everyone in the underground, was Lucian Blackwood, the ruthless mafia boss who ruled the city's darkest corners. I was nobody, just Eli Carter, a kid from a broken home who'd made one too many bad choices. Dead had chained me to men who saw me as less than human, and now I was their latest transaction. My eyes darted to the figure stepping forward, his silhouette sharp against the haze of cigar smoke. Lucian's presence was a storm tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from stone and eyes like midnight. The room fell silent as he approached, his polished shoes clicking on the concrete floor. I braced myself for cruelty, for a life of servitude to a monster. But when his gaze met mine, there was something else, something I couldn't name. They shoved me into the back of a black SUV, the city lights blurring past as we drove to Lucian's mansion on Lake Michigan's edge. My stomach churned with dread, but I held my head high, refusing to let them see me break. The mansion loomed like a fortress, all sharp angles and towering windows, a place that screamed power. Inside, I was led to a room with a single bed, a window overlooking the stormy lake, and a lock on the door. I expected chains, a cage, anything but the quiet knock that came hours later. Lucian stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms lined with tattoos. "You're not a prisoner here, Eli," he said, his voice low, almost gentle. I scoffed. "My defense is up. You bought me. That makes me property." He didn't flinch, just leaned against the frame, studying me like I was a puzzle. "I don't own people," he said. "I paid for your freedom, not your chains." His words hung in the air, heavy with a truth I wasn't ready to trust. Days turned into weeks, and Lucian's world was nothing like I'd imagined. The mansion buzzed with activity, men in suits, coded conversations, the constant hum of danger, but Lucian treated me differently. He gave me books to read, asked about my life, my dreams. He listened when I spoke, his eyes softening in a way that made my chest ache. I'd been invisible my whole life, but under his gaze, I felt seen. Yet, I couldn't shake the fear. He was a killer, a man who'd built an empire on blood. Why was he kind to me? What did he want? One night, after a tense meeting with his lieutenants, Lucian found me in the library, my nose buried in a worn copy of The Great Gatsby. "You like stories about broken dreams?" he asked, sitting across from me. His voice was tired, and for the first time, I saw cracks in his armor, a man carrying a weight I couldn't understand. "I like stories about people who keep going," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. He smiled, a rare, fleeting thing that lit up the room. "You're stronger than you think, Eli." Our conversations grew longer, stolen moments in the chaos of his world. I learned he wasn't born into this life, he'd been forced into it, shaped by betrayal and loss. He spoke of a brother he couldn't save, a past he couldn't escape. I told him about my mother, who'd left when I was 10, and the debts that had trapped me. We were two broken pieces, fitting together in ways I hadn't expected. One night, under a sky heavy with stars, he took my hand, his touch warm and grounding. You don't belong in this world. He whispered. You deserve better. But his world wouldn't let us go. Whispers of a rival gang, the Vipers, grew louder. They wanted Lucian's territory, his power, and they knew about me. One of his men, a snake named Marco, sneered that I was Lucian's weakness. I overheard plans for an ambush, and my blood ran cold. They'd use me to get to him. I wanted to run, to protect myself. But the thought of leaving Lucian twisted something deep inside me. I was falling for him, and that scared me more than the danger closing in. By the end of the first month, I was no longer just a captive. I was someone Lucian trusted, someone he confided in. But trust was a fragile thing in his world, and I could feel the storm coming. The Vipers were circling, and Marco's betrayal was only a matter of time. I stood at the window, watching the lake churn under a gray sky, my heart torn between fear and something deeper, something that felt like love. Lucian stepped behind me, his breath warm against my neck. Whatever happens, he said, I won't let them hurt you. I turned to face him, our eyes locking, and for the first time, I believed him. The air in Lucian's mansion grew heavier as the Viper's threat loomed. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, my every move shadowed by men who saw me as a pawn. Lucian was different now, distracted, his jaw tight with worry. Yet, in the quiet moments, he'd find me, his hand brushing mine, his voice a low anchor in the chaos. Stay close, he'd say, and I did, not because I was afraid, but because being near him felt like the only safe place left. One evening, as rain lashed the windows, Lucian pulled me into his study, locking the door behind us. Eli, I need you to know something, he said, his voice raw. He told me about the Viper's leader, Dante, a man who'd once been his friend but now wanted him dead. He knows about you, Lucian admitted, his eyes searching mine. He'll use you to break me. My stomach twisted, but I stepped closer, my hand finding his. Then don't let him, I said, my voice trembling but firm. For a moment, we stood there, the world outside fading, and I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes, mirrored in my own. Our bond deepened in stolen glances and whispered promises. Late one night, after a raid left Lucian bloodied but alive, I cleaned his wounds, my fingers trembling as they traced the scars on his skin. Why do you care? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't have an answer, not in words. Instead, I leaned in, our lips meeting in a kiss that felt like defiance against the world trying to tear us apart. It was soft at first, then desperate, a collision of fear and longing. He pulled me close, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But the Vipers were relentless. Marco's betrayal came swiftly a tip to Dante about Lucian's next shipment. I overheard him in the garage, his voice low and venomous, plotting to hand me over as bait. My heart pounded as I slipped away, finding Lucian in his office. Marco's working with them, I blurted, my voice shaking. Lucian's face darkened, but he didn't doubt me. He pulled me into his arms, his grip fierce. I'll handle it, he promised. But I saw the fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for me. The next day, Lucian confronted Marco in the courtyard, his men circling like wolves. Marco laughed, his eyes glinting with malice. You're soft now, Blackwood. That boy's made you weak. Lucian's fist connected with Marco's jaw, a crack that echoed through the tension. "He's more than you'll ever understand," Lucian growled, and my chest tightened with something I couldn't name. But Marco's words lingered, a poison seeping into my doubts. Was I Lucian's weakness? Could I ever truly belong in his world? As the days passed, Lucian's empire began to fracture. Raids came faster. Losses mounted. He spent nights planning, his face etched with exhaustion. But he never pushed me away. Instead, he shared his world, his fears, his regrets. One night, as we lay together in the dark, he traced the lines of my palm. "I never wanted this life," he whispered. "But you make me want something better." I kissed him, my heart aching with the weight of his words. I wanted to believe we could escape, but the vipers were closing in, and time was running out. The breaking point came during a deal gone wrong. Lucian took me with him, insisting I stay in the car. But gunfire erupted, and the world turned to chaos. I ducked low, my pulse racing, as bullets shattered the windows. Lucian fought his way back to me, blood streaking his face, and pulled me from the wreckage. "Run," he ordered, but I grabbed his hand, refusing to leave. We fled into an alley, rain soaking us as we pressed against a brick wall, our breaths mingling. "I can't lose you," he said, his voice breaking. I cupped his face, my thumb brushing his scar. "You won't." We hid in a safe house, a cramped apartment overlooking the city. There, in the quiet, Lucian told me the truth. He'd been planning to dismantle his empire, to walk away for good. "For you," he said, his eyes fierce with determination. "You deserve a life, not a war." My heart swelled, but fear gnawed at me. Dante was still out there, and he wouldn't stop until Lucian was dead or I was his. The safe house became our sanctuary, but it couldn't shield us from the storm. Lucian worked tirelessly, redirecting shipments, cutting ties, trying to unravel the empire he'd built. I watched him, torn between awe and fear. He was fighting for us, for a future I hadn't dared to dream of. But every phone call, every coded message, reminded me how close danger was. Dante's men were hunting us, and the city felt like a trap closing in. One night, as thunder rattled the windows, Lucian pulled me close, his hands steady despite the chaos. "If I don't make it out," he said, his voice low, "promise me you'll keep going." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "Don't say that. We're getting out together." He kissed me, fierce and desperate, as if he could pour his strength into me. In that moment, I knew I'd fight for him as hard as he fought for me. The end came faster than we expected. Dante's men found us, a betrayal from someone inside Lucian's circle. They stormed the safe house at dawn, shattering the fragile peace. Lucian fought like a man possessed, his body a shield between me and the gunfire. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, my hands shaking but steady enough to wound one of the attackers. Lucian's eyes met mine, a flash of pride amidst the chaos. "Stay behind me," he shouted, and I did, my heart pounding as we fought our way out. We escaped to an abandoned warehouse by the docks, the air thick with salt and rust. Lucian was bleeding, a gash across his arm, but he refused to stop. "Dante's coming himself," he said, checking his gun. "This ends tonight." I wanted to beg him to run, to leave this life behind. but I saw the resolve in his eyes. This was his redemption, his chance to break free not just for me, but for himself. Dante arrived, his presence as cold as the steel in his hand. "You think you can walk away?" he taunted, his eyes flicking to me. "You're nothing without this world. Lucian. And him. He's just collateral." Lucian stepped in front of me, his voice steady. "He's everything you'll never be." The words hit like a spark, igniting something in me. I wasn't just a victim anymore, I was part of this fight. The confrontation was brutal, a blur of fists and gunfire. Lucian took down Dante's men, but Dante was relentless, his hatred a living thing. I saw my chance when Dante's gun jammed, and I tackled him, my knife grazing his side. Lucian finished it, a single shot that ended the war. Dante fell, and the silence that followed was deafening. Lucian dropped to his knees, blood and exhaustion overtaking him. I caught him, my arms trembling as I held him close. "It's over," I whispered, and he nodded, his hand finding mine. In the days that followed, Lucian dismantled what was left of his empire. He burned records, freed his men, and walked away from the life that had defined him. We left Chicago, settling in a small town in Oregon, where the ocean stretched endless and free. The house was modest, nothing like the mansion, but it was ours. Lucian found work fixing boats, his hands calloused but no longer stained with blood. I started writing, pouring our story into words, hoping it might help someone else find their way. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lucian took my hand, leading me to the shore. "I was supposed to save you," he said, his voice soft. "But you saved me." I smiled, my heart full. We saved each other. He kissed me, the waves crashing around us, and I knew we'd found something worth fighting for, a life built on love, not chains. Our past would always be part of us, but it didn't define us. Lucian had been a monster to the world, but to me, he was a man who'd chosen redemption. And I, once sold as property, had found my voice, my strength, and my home. Together, we were free not just from the mafia, but from the fear that had once held us captive. The world was ours now, and we'd face it side by side.